Okay, we are live. Very good afternoon to all the viewers and guest visitors on IndianTelevision.com and on our Facebook Live and on our YouTube Live pages. Welcome. Welcome to all of you all. Good afternoon. The Indian broadcast television evolution story is replete with entrepreneurs who have helped propel the industry forward. Whether it was Ronnie Screwvala, who set up the first cable TV network, or Siddharth Srivastav, not many people know of him, but he was actually the man who launched the first private satellite channel in India, or Subhash Chandra, who launched the first private Hindi general entertainment channel, or other local entrepreneurs like Kalanidhi Maran, or news pioneers such as Pranoy Roy, who set up NDTV, or the 7 professionals who got together to set up Ace Satellite Singapore and sold it to Sony, or Raghav Bell, who set up a clutch of news channels and went on to build Viacom 18, build a studio, and then finally it became Viacom 18, and now it's in the hands of Mr. Mukesh Ambani. Then there are smaller entrepreneur folks like Prashant Chotani, who slogged his way from being a cable operator to build his reputation as a global 4K production pioneer through his Travel XP network. Or the likes of this giant of a man who towers over almost every single professional when he enters a room. Physically, I mean, really. The man had very little idea about the business of television when he was brought on board to run Epic TV at the young age of 32 by a bunch of big-time industrialists. His claim to fame was that he was part of a group that had done some construction, distributed Patanjali's products, and had a warehousing and logistics business. Plus, of course, he had run a religious channel called Sanskar TV, which he later sold to Swami Ramdev. I'm talking about the young and dynamic Aditya Pittie. And yes, he is very tall. We'll ask him how tall he is a little later. Today, the Pittie Group runs channels such as Epic TV Plus, Showbox, and has plans to launch a few more of them. It runs OTTs, streamers such as DocuBay and Epicon. It has a production company, Juggernaut, which has just signed a deal with the Kumaramangalam Birla owned Samir Nair run Applause Entertainment. There's a games company in the group too called Platinista, which is focused on the hyper-casual games genre. And finally, there's a news aggregator called Latestly, which Aditya loves to talk about. He always says it's doing very well. So welcome to another IndianTelevision.com's virtual fireside chat with Anil Vanwari. And my guest, I've already said it earlier, you get no prizes for guessing, is none other than Aditya Pittie. Hi, Aditya. Welcome to the show and a big welcome to all of you all. Hi, Aditya.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Anil. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. I'd love whoever's viewing this to send in the questions. Get tough questions coming. Aditya is going to answer every one of them, no matter how tough they are. So you can comment on our Facebook, you can WhatsApp me, you can send questions to my email, and we'll ask the questions to Aditya. So Aditya, how are you this afternoon? Is everything good in your corner of the city?
Well, who would know, right? I mean, the current situation that we're in is difficult to say, but I think overall, I think the city is definitely not in a good shape. I think we had all hoped that we would be able to flatten the curve by now, and very clearly we haven't been able to do that yet. So I think I'm deeply concerned. Actually, I think this fight's going to be far longer than what we would have thought in April. So yeah, I mean, but personally, I'm trying to keep my morale high. Trying to use this time to introspect. To look for opportunities going forward, because, I still believe that while this is a temporary sort of, challenge and setback for the nation, I think India, in line with the Prime Minister's message, I think India is, really set for, massive growth going forward. So I'm just trying to use this time to see how, our businesses can be sort of better prepared for that future.
Fantastic. So, good time to introspect. Most of us are so busy running our businesses that I run my own business, that we don't get time to introspect. We are running on the treadmill. So have you been running on the treadmill yourself in this time that you've had, apart from contemplating and reflecting on what you need to do?
So I'm actually a yoga guy. So,
okay.
Yeah, I do a lot of pranayam in the morning, a lot of stretching, some Surya Namaskar. And I've been watching what I eat as much as I can during this lockdown. So that's my sort of focus as far as health is concerned.
Yeah, your father KK Pittie was pretty close to Swami Ramdev. Have you also trained under Swami?
Is.
Stand corrected. Is very close to him. In fact, he helped get the first time when he helped actually propel in a way was part of the success story of Swami Ramdev too.
Yeah, so like many people who believed in Swamiji, wanted to join his mission to create value for the nation, and we had an opportunity to contribute to that journey at a very early stage in Patanjali's story, and since then, obviously, they've done really well, and our relationship has grown stronger over the years. So we have, obviously, there's some sort of a business relationship that we have with them, which is ongoing, but our relationship is far deeper than that. We have a lot of common values in terms of how we believe business can be used to create value for society at large. So I think that's that's been the mission of Swamiji even before he conceptualized Patanjali. So we've been connected with him, since the seeding of the idea, and therefore we share the long-term vision, and we continue to be part of that journey in some way or the other, as and when he needs us to contribute in whichever way possible.
And your father did go to Haridwar and actually had seen him there, and then he invited him to Bombay. Then he conducted that very, very big yoga gathering way back, I think, some
Correct.
12 or 14 years ago.
Yes. So that's the
that
time
was before
when
Patanjali was even born.
Yeah, it was much before Patanjali. That time Swamiji was, he was focusing only on traveling the country, and obviously, spreading the knowledge of yoga to as many common people as possible. And obviously through television, and he used to be on Astha live every morning, and that's how he was able to really create the awareness of how simplified yoga can be done by normal people in their homes, and the value it can add to their health and their everyday life. Not just from a weight loss point of view, but also from sort of general mental health. That's the time when we actually, my father went to Haridwar first, did a yoga camp, attended a yoga camp with him, and was so impressed with, with the vision that this man had, that we just decided to be part of the journey.
Yeah, and there was no looking back after that, because first he got onto Astha, then you'll have to rest him back to get onto Sanskar, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I mean, now that's all in the past, but
because he became a big name after the entire projection that yoga got through Astha and through Sanskar.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, television did play a big role in his popularity, but a lot of people don't know this. But Swamiji is actually one of the very few people in this country that has traveled to every single district by road, right? So a lot of people think that most of his popularity comes from television, which it probably does. But this man has physically, conducted large yoga camps with millions of people. I don't think anybody else has, conducted these kind of live programs at this scale ever in the history of the country, right? So his ground connect with the people is so strong, and that's where the whole idea and the philosophy of Patanjali comes from, right? It's for the people, for the real people, that didn't have access to good quality products, and where brands used to mark up their products by creating brand perception, sometimes compromising the underlying value of the product. His mission was, when he traveled the country, he saw that there was a big gap in that, and he wanted to give better value products to consumers. That was the mission. So I think while television was an important part of his his phase where he became popular, I think a lot of people don't know that he worked really hard for almost 7-8 years. I saw him travel, to conduct yoga camps morning, evening, in every single part of the country. I mean, from Assam to the south to Jammu, Kashmir. I mean, exceptional.
Fantastic. So you had a good starting point in a way. Your dad and Acharya ji and Swami ji, both who were one who was driven, and Acharya ji who's extremely good at Ayurveda, and you had a father who was extremely entrepreneurial. I mean, he was into real estate. You came in, you expanded the business. So tell us a bit about that.
So I actually worked with my father for a good 8-9 years after graduation. So after I came back from King's College, after working from 8-9 years, I felt the need to sort of start building my own identity and my own business, and that's when the idea of selling Patanjali in supermarkets came about. So at that time, Patanjali was a 700-800 crore company, and they were not present in any of the supermarket chains. And there was a lot of noise around FDI in retail, and how modern retail is going to be eventually have a larger share going forward. And I was very, very intrigued by that. And when I went to some of the supermarket chains, I realized that Patanjali wasn't present there. So I found I thought it was a good opportunity to build a business from scratch. Because before that, honestly, Anil, I mean, while we were part of the Patanjali journey, I wasn't actively involved in any of the decision making or management, right? So for me, it was a completely new business. But luckily, Swamiji was supportive and gave me an opportunity to at least try and see if there's any interest with the retailers. And then the first retailer I went to was Reliance Retail, and a gentleman there called Damodar Mal, and another gentleman there called Prasanna Shah, who met me for the first time there. And while they liked the idea of Patanjali, they were very supportive of the fact that as an entrepreneur, I wanted to build a business. And that's how the journey started. We piloted with 5 stores first at 5 Reliance Retail outlets in Mumbai. I still remember I used to make the invoices myself, and take the order sheets from our merchandisers just to understand, how the business is done on the ground. And then obviously since then, Patanjali grew and so did our business, and we started contributing 8 to 10% of Patanjali's overall business.
Wow, that's amazing. And so there's also the logistics side of the business. We are going to talk about media, but first let's understand the background in terms of the Pittie Group, and then after that your own forays. So there's the logistics side of the business that you do, supply chain and all that through the group. There's construction, there's logistics, and there is a Patanjali distribution.
Yeah,
Am I right? And there's media. We'll come to the media business.
Sure. No. So the real estate business is actually my father's business. So okay. I'm not that actively involved in the business anymore, although I am needed sometimes to help out, etc. But yeah, so the distribution business. So like I said, over the years, we built a lot of capabilities at the back end. We designed solutions that catered specifically to supermarket chains, because dealing with supermarket chains is not as easy or as simple as dealing with say unorganized retail. It's not only about just delivering your goods, giving them a bill and doing the transaction. There's a lot of complex systems that are involved in making sure that you're able to service them correctly, and time to market and your ability to turn around an order into delivery and then collection of payment is key to driving market share for brands in the supermarket space. So we've sort of built a solution that creates value for brands that want to increase their market share in supermarket chains. And we have obviously a large warehousing network. So we have 19 warehouses pan India on 500,000 square feet. We've started to look at some other brands and other clients who require this kind of logistical reach and service. So that's broadly the way we are going about our logistics business at the moment. But obviously our biggest client still continues to be Patanjali, and they're a business now that's found that base, and we're hoping that from now on it's going to again start increasing like it was before.
Great. I mean, but are you open to also distributing other products and other companies' products?
So we are very selective. I have actually just done a deal with an American company for their beauty brands. Again, which are non-competing with Patanjali, because I need to maintain some sort of semblance in who my clients are. And I also have some other companies that are only using us for warehousing logistics and not necessarily for our relationships with the supermarket chain. So it's a bit of a complex structure that we have right now. We're trying to find our feet and what exactly we'd like to do when we go forward.
Great. Plus, not many people know this, but you're the man behind Soho House in Juhu. Or Pittie Group is behind Soho House.
No. So we're just one of the investors, Anil.
Okay.
So it's we came in actually quite late, just before it was opening.
Okay.
But yeah, we're the single largest shareholder at the moment.
Fantastic. So that's done. Now let's get down to media. What actually inspired you to get into media? What was it that inspired you?
So honestly, the Sanskar opportunity came to us sort of very organically. And when we decided that, when the opportunity came, we thought that the product was really strong. It was Aastha and Sanskar had 95% market share at that time in the genre. And we're a pretty, I mean, while we are not an orthodox Marwari family, we are a pretty religious family, right? And for us, the opportunity to have a brand like Sanskar in our portfolio and to be able to be part of the journey was something that the family at that time felt that it was a good decision to make. And that's how we got interested in the media, in the media business, and specifically in Sanskar. And I mean, I started out, I mean, the first thing I did when I found out about the deal, and when my father told me, because it was his decision, with his business. So when he told me that, oh, we're doing this deal, and the first thing I did was to actually Google what downlinking and uplinking means, right? Because till that time, I didn't know how a satellite signal works. So I remember, I think this was almost 10, 12 years ago. So yeah, so that's how it started. And then I obviously, Sanskar had a very different, very unique business model. So it wasn't a typical, broadcast business where you invest in programming and then monetize through ad sales. Most of the programming on the spiritual genre is given by the content owners for free because they want reach, right? And in fact, in most cases, they pay you to use your platform for their reach. So it was a great experience. I mean, and that I think we ran it for 5 years or so, and we sold it to Swamiji for for a very good return. So I think that's how we got interested in the media business. And then then we looked at starting another spiritual TV channel, and that's how Shuk TV came along. And during that time, I had met Anand, a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times. And when he, we had a conversation. Epic had just launched at that time, and I just gave him some of my thoughts about what I thought Epic was, where the weaknesses and strengths of Epic were, and that was the end of the conversation. And a few years later, I get a call saying that would you like to be interested in doing something with Epic. And that's how the journey with Epic started. And the primary objective of that relationship was to make sure that Epic as a brand and as a product, which was loved by millions, was able to survive in a viable way, and continue in a viable way, because critically acclaimed content, something that the product that Anand has always been proud of, the feedback that he got, etc. And when I did some research on the channel, I felt that the product was very strong and definitely worth putting in some time to make it work. And that's how my partnership with Anand started, and that's how we started building Epic again.
Yeah, so there's some confusion in the minds. You also are an owner of the channel, right? You also have invested in it.
Yes, I am also. There is a arrangement where I am also a shareholder.
So you have skin in the game. It's not just that you're.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you got Epic. When you got Epic, what did you feel was right? What did you feel was wrong? And what did you go about correcting? And what did you go about retaining, correcting, building?
So I think it would be inaccurate to say that there was something wrong with Epic, because I think the product was just very ahead of its time. I think Mahesh is vision. Mahesh is a very seasoned media professional, right? He ran big companies, and also, and a lot of people don't know this, but Mahesh actually is a consumer guy, right? So he understands what consumers want in general. So I think his some of the content that they created at that time is still still our flagship content, right? So I think it would be unfair to say that they did something wrong. They did a lot of things right. I think the timing of Tam going away and Bach coming in, and I think just the fact that the content was slightly ahead of its time, something that the audiences in India, in the mass audience in India, probably did not accept as well as Mahesh would have thought. I think so. That's the challenge I think that they faced. The opportunity was obviously that there was a very strong brand affinity. So while the viewership was low, it was loyal, right? So and it's when I did some research and I did some homework, and I realized that in niche products, right, you have a lesser absolute viewership, but you have a more relevant viewership. Like, so like, for example, English news, right? The number of people that watch English news is far lower than mostly all genres, right? But the reason why they get so much traction on advertising is because the brands that want that TG and want that affinity, require use English news for that. So so all in theory, the fact that Epic had such a strong niche, and such a strong positioning, I felt in the long term would definitely reap some value. So I think that was the base concept behind my conviction that Epic can be turned around. And then since then, obviously, we did the repositioning, and then we changed our distribution strategy, and we did multiple things to ensure that we stay on course, stay on our path to profitability, right?
So in terms of distribution, what did you change? What was it before, and what did you bring out? Did you get onto more DPOs, or did you get onto select DPOs?
So Epic was always a pay channel, right? But usually when you launch a new channel, you have to incentivize DPOs and cable operators to carry your channel and give you the right LCNs and things like that. Obviously, Epic, when I took over, Epic had certain deals in the markets about how much they were paying or they were getting for DPOs carrying the channel, which obviously I felt was not ideal, which we then turned around over a period of a couple of years. And this year now, Epic is from a distribution point of view, it's actually subscription positive for the first time. So we went from being a pay channel that incentivizes or pays DPOs, cable operators, carriage to carry the channel, to becoming a net positive subscription earner.
Yeah, for a man who didn't know what uplinking and downlinking was 12 years ago, what happened? Just if you could throw some light.
I think honestly, since you're asking a question on a lighter note, I'll give you anything that. So I'm driven. See, while a lot of people entrepreneurs talk about how they got inspired by being driven by a problem that they wanted to solve or a passion that they had. For me, my passion is creating wealth, right? Creating value and building scale. So I think that's what drives me. So and that's the reason why you see that I'm interested in multiple businesses, because I'm not passionate about any particular type of business. I'm just passionate about business, right? And about building businesses that have scale, that gives employment to many people. I think that's what drives me, right? So, and I think in Epic, and obviously in my partnership with Anand, I felt that there was an opportunity for a young guy like me to really live up to that dream of wanting to create that opportunity for others and create a cohesive environment of building a business. I think that's what I enjoy the most.
Fantastic. So you said young guy. How young are you? 36, 34, 32, 33?
I'm 36 now.
Wow. And it was 6 years ago that you when did you take up Epic TV?
Epic it's been just over 4 years now.
So you're all of 32. Wow. When you took it up and you learned the business quickly. So what did you learn about the business?
Honestly, I had the luxury of having people around me who had an equation that was not limited to just work. And we worked. I worked with them like they're my friends, and that's how we had a very democratic sort of approach to finding solutions to the challenges that Epic faced. And we used to always ideate, and so it was a collective effort. We all felt. So one of the things was to reposition Epic, because while it was it was intended to be a GEC, Anil, somewhere in the programming, it became a knowledge-based product, right? So people started perceiving it as an infotainment channel, right? And even in the market, they started looking at it. Some of the brands started calling it infotainment when it's actually was always in the GC space. So for us, when I took over, and it took me 4 or 5 months to understand, the product, frankly, and I took my time. But when I did, and then when I decided what's the next thing that we can do, we realized that you rather be part of a smaller genre but have a better market share, rather than be part of a very big genre and have insignificant market share. And I felt that that's why it will be smarter to just move it to infotainment, which is what people perceive it to be anyway. And that's how the decision to rebrand the logo and reposition the channel from GEC to infotainment came about.
It was a smart decision because GEC's carriage fees are much higher, if I'm correct.
No, I think GECs, carriage fees is one part of the GECs. At the end of the day, content is where the real game is, right? At the end of the day. So while carriage is a big cost of running a broadcast business, I think content is the key, right? So to be able to compete with, to be able to get significant market share in GEC, there's a certain amount of capital that you need and certain amount of risk appetite that you need. Unless you have that capital and that risk appetite, you cannot compete in that space. So for us at that time, we felt that for Epic as a channel, the kind of positioning it had, and also the idea, like I said, Epic as a brand was so loved that to make it into a mass GEC would have compromised the value and the brand identity of Epic and what it stands for. So the objective was not only to make it commercially viable, but also to keep the essence of Epic as a brand alive, right? And to make sure that people who love Epic continue to enjoy Epic and continue to get that content from Epic as a channel. So it wasn't just about viability. So we had to balance both and find the right fit, and that's why I felt that infotainment was a good fit.
Excellent. So in terms of programming, fresh programming every year, Epic puts out what, 150 hours a year, or
so we do about 100. We do about 125 hours every year of original programming, but we acquire a lot of programming as well.
Okay. So, and how often do you renew your slate?
But don't forget, we have almost 600 hours of our own IP, right? Our own programming as well.
Sure.
So which people, they're all episodic, right? And people love watching them multiple times anyway. So
in terms of how have the advertisers reacted to it? It's a paid channel, but most paid channels depend on advertising revenues too. So has there been enough take up from the advertising fraternity?
Yeah. So Epic, the infotainment genre in general, has obviously, it's maintained its pie of the overall ad revenue for all genres combined, but there's not much growth. It's pretty stagnant. In the infotainment genre, there is a lot of brand integration and those kind of opportunities that you have. So it's not only about selling pure FCT, because as you know, most of the pure ad business, pure FCT deals are done just based on ratings, right? Really driven by brand positioning. So we've been focusing a lot recently on content and trying to find brands to plug into the Epic positioning so that they get more bang for their buck. Case in point, we did the Bala Senor series with Gujarat Tourism, for example. We did something with the Punjab government on the Jallianwala Bagh anniversary, and then we're doing something with the Chhattisgarh Tourism Board, etc. So these are some of the where they're paying for content and they're integrating their brands into our content, right? So I think the genre is moving in a space where brands who want to integrate with the positioning of Epic are the kind of it's kind of ad monetization that we believe is going to be the key driver going forward.
Fantastic. So what's the journey ahead for Epic? You launched Epic Plus HD, which is a premium product, if I'm correct. So yeah, what's the journey ahead for Epic? Yeah, and Epic Plus HD.
So Epic, a lot of our Epic viewers and fans have been wanting an HD version of the channel for a very long time. But we believe that we want to have a separate channel rather. So earlier, we had the same feed in HD and SD, but now we want to have a completely separate programming, completely separate FPC, programming lineup for Epic Plus HD as and when we decide to launch it. So there's definitely something on the cards because as we know that over time, HD is something that's going to become the mainstay.
Fantastic. So now you had Epic, you turned it around. Then you were getting bored, I presume. That's why you launched DocuBay and Epicon. You have this hunger to grow all the time, right? You have that itch. You want to build businesses.
No, the reason I'm laughing is because what you're saying is actually not untrue. So yeah. So one of the reasons why because obviously after some time, so when I went back to Anand and I said, okay, this is the future of Epic now, etc. And and then we started, we've been talking a lot about the media and entertainment space, etc. And fundamentally, again, like I said, the common thought process is that we both believe that the media and entertainment industry is going to grow exponentially over the next 10-15 years. So I think that's the base, right? So and then obviously with Epic's stability came some confidence about how we can build on that and build a business that can be a larger media network as opposed to just one channel. And most people in the media business, and especially in the broadcast business, will agree with me. that is very difficult to make money with just one channel. So I think it was a natural progression for us to look at multiple TV channels. And then when we looked at multiple TV channels, we realized that the kind of infrastructure and the kind of resources and the kind of goodwill that we were building for ourselves in the market, it would be an obvious progression to have our own assets in the OTT space as well. And Epic On, which is our first OTT product, is a product that because we have our own library and we have such a niche niche audience, but a very loyal audience. We felt that it was important that they had access to Epic's content on an OTT platform as well. So that's how the journey started with Epic On. Obviously, now we are going to pivot, and we'll be announcing something interesting over the next few weeks about what we're doing with Epic On. And then Docubay, again, as an idea, came about from our love for factual entertainment. As you know, the infotainment space is about factual entertainment, and when we were looking at some of the ideas that we can do for Epic as a platform, we show a lot of Hindi documentaries, so we've been very interested in the documentary space, and we believe that has a lot of value. We believe that as a genre, it's actually one of the most popular genres in the world. And I always say this, that if you look at a Netflix or an Amazon, etc., they have a large library of documentaries, right? In most cases, you don't probably see them because Netflix, their recommendation engines have assumed that you don't like them because you're not really consuming them on it, so they don't throw it up at you. But there is a large library of documentaries, and a lot of people across the world really enjoy watching documentaries. So when we were doing that homework, we realized, why not look at a dedicated platform for Docubay? And I told the team, very very, I remember very candidly when we were discussing about. So initially it was going to be an India product, right? And one day I said to them, I said, listen, Indian companies, they always think about, oh, let's look at the India market first. I said, why not, since they're English language documentaries, why not look at going global from day one? And that's how the idea of launching Docubay at a global level came about. And since then, actually, Docubay is a very powerful product. And I don't know if you had a chance to experience it.
But I did. I actually was there when you launched it at MIPDoc in Cannes. I mean, I was very much part of that journey of the launch.
Of course. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yes. That's
so.
Thanks.
So it's when I say it's powerful, it's because if you're a documentary lover, right, the experience of watching documentaries on Docubay is far superior, than watching documentaries on any other platform in the world, right? So while you may get, and even the variety, right, the ways the content is curated, how we select our titles, how we've segregated them in different ways, etc. And we don't call our members subscribers, right? We call them members. We don't use the word subscribers, and because the idea behind that is to build a community, right? And that's why it has a tagline of one tribe, which is that you can be part. There are many worlds and many things on this planet, but we're all at the end of the day one tribe, and that's the message that we built for Docubay. And I mean, as a platform, it's getting some great traction. We just went live on Roku in North America and UK and Europe this week, and we're constantly making sure hard to build the technology. So both our OTT platforms, we're one of the very few companies in India that have our own OTT technology in house. So barring obviously the big networks, we're probably the only smaller media network that has its own OTT technology. So we've spent almost a year and a half in building the technology, and as an organization, we're really proud of both our OTT products.
So now you've got Epic has how many subscribers and viewers? One, Epicon and Docubay. How are they faring in terms of pricing, in terms of number of on the offtake that they've had? Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some insight. I'm not going to give you that information.
Whatever you can, please go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I'm just on a lighter note. But so see the metrics, the KPIs for Epicon and Docubay both, right? They're not driven by number of users, right? They're driven by time spent. That's what we track. They're driven by ARPU. They're driven by how many organic, how much organic traction we have, etc. So we are not in the race of having X million MAUs or DAOs or active users, etc. We are in the race of building a niche product. So if you look at the pricing of both Epicon and Docubay, it's far higher than any of the other horizontal or generic OTTs, if I can call them that. So we are very clearly a vertical player. We want to have a specific offering, right, and then charge a premium for that offering. That's the model that we are working on. So by no means we try to fret too much about how many users we have or how fast the user base is growing. So we're not hungry to just drive traffic. We want it to be quality traffic. Like I can't disclose our numbers to you on this forum, but I'll tell you offline. But some of the conversion rates that we have, right, in terms of installs versus number of people who are subscribing, etc., is probably one of the best, some of the best in the industry. So I think those are some of the things that we sort of focus on, and we're trying to build a model that revolves around that. So stickiness and higher paying members who are looking for a specific service, as opposed to getting everybody to come on the platform and give them something that they like. That's not our strategy.
So when do you start making money on them? Since you're looking at other metrics right now, what is your game plan, business plan? Is it 5 years, 3 years, 7 years where you turn profitable with them, or is it?
No, so see, profitability in the media business is very, it's about how much content you want to put out, right? So, obviously there's sort of chicken and egg situation, right? So there's only, you can invest in content and drive viewership, and then the money you make out of that, you can then reinvest in content, right? So it's something that is evolving every day, and honestly, I don't have an answer to that. But obviously, we have a business plan in place. We're focused. We believe that there's a direction that we want to take. But even if I have 1 million, say, I'm just giving you a ballpark hypothetical figure, 1 million subscribers, right? And considering our ARPU and the way our product is positioned, we would be making decent money, right? So we don't need 20, 30 million subscribers to break even. So that's the model, right?
Fantastic. So
you have lesser subscribers, lesser users, but higher ARPU.
Fantastic.
So they are referred to. Sorry, I'm sorry. So I'm just for
please go ahead. Please
clarity. So they are referred to as what. And I give this example. I've given this example before as vertical OTTs, right? So how you have vertical e-commerce players. So you have a Lenskart, you have an Nykaa, right? So the same lenses and the same beauty products you get on Nykaa, you also get on Flipkart and Amazon, right? But the experience of buying a lens on Lenskart is far superior than buying the same pair of glasses on Amazon, right? Because they let you try it. There's this face scanning, and then all those features that they've added. In the same way, we believe as an organization, and me personally, that going forward, once OTT becomes, over the next 15, 20 years, when OTT becomes mainstream, there'll be a big market for vertical OTTs, right? Where people will subscribe and pay you a premium for the experience of, the kind of content you're creating and curating for them, which is dedicated to the genre that they prefer focusing on. So as opposed to going on sort of, say, an horizontal platform, so that's why. So the differentiation is between horizontal, where you have all types of content under one umbrella, versus a vertical offering, which is slightly more focused and niche. So that's the base, model behind our OTT strategy. And I can give you global examples, like there's WWE, there is Crunchyroll, there are various other, vertical OTT players that are making decent money. They have less number of subscribers, but a high ARPU and very viable business models. So I think I get
it. But you're entered a space which is a global space, and you've got John Hendricks, the founder, one of the creators of Discovery, now running Curiosity Stream, who's actually getting a lot more traction. So in terms of, you've just launched in North America on Roku, you're not competing with them, or are you, with Curiosity Stream?
So the interesting differentiation between Curiosity Stream and us is that they have a lot of short form content, and so they have 2-minute, 3-minute. They have a lot of series. They have a lot of docu-series. So Docubay is a feature platform. So we only do films, right? And we only carry content that is a minimum of 20-25 minutes. So the product offering is very different, and theirs is very knowledge based. So it's a lot about science and assumptions and research and things like that. And ours is very about, we will give you a perspective, and then you form your own opinion. So if you look at the content that we do, and that's how the documentary genre should be, right? So if you look at the kind of titles that we have on Docubay, they are very sort of very interesting in the sense that they give you a perspective, but they let you form your own opinion about the topic at hand. So I don't think that, yes, while we are both in factual entertainment, and yes, they are, to some degree competition, we believe that we are a completely, different platform than Curiosity Stream, and we don't necessarily consider them to be competition.
Okay, fantastic. So that's great. Now you've got your OTT on which is very vertical. Why get into content creation when it didn't make sense to me, or it does make sense because you want to be a studio as well with Juggernaut, and then get into bed with Applause immediately thereafter. What's the thinking behind it? I mean, behind the production slate that the production company.
So I think we need to separate our partnership with Applause from us being a production house. While they're on the connected, they're the two separate business models, right? So on the production side, Anil, the idea was that we foresee we were able to foresee last year that the demand for content from OTT platforms is going to skyrocket, and unfortunately, or if, from an opportunity point of view, probably fortunately, good content creators who understand what kind of content is going to work on OTTs, unfortunately limited in our industry, right? And there are only a handful of players that are able to create good quality content in realistic budgets. And we felt that as an organization that has created so many hours of content in the broadcast business, we felt that we could leverage that knowledge and that expertise to build a successful production business for other platforms. And in terms of scale, we thought as a corporate network, we felt that the business can be large enough to justify our resources and our time and energy. And then that's when we hired Samar Khan to lead our production business for OTT. And with Codem being a super hit, I think we've had a great start.
Codem came on Balaji, on all Balaji, Codem,
and Z5.
And Z5 as well. Okay,
so it's part of that joint publishing deal. So yeah, so I mean, for us, the success of Codem, and now we have, you'd be happy to know that we have probably the largest order book in the industry right now. So we have more than 11 shows confirmed, Anil, for production, with an order book of over 100 crores for the next year or so. So Juggernaut is going to be one of our biggest businesses, the way things are going. And the ability to create content at scale, is something that we are really excited about. And Samar and his team have worked really hard to build our writers' room, to get our good talented writers and concepts together, Bibles together, to convince OTT platforms that we have the ability to deliver solid products. Giving them a slate of concepts which are ready to go. So I think we're really excited about the Juggernaut business, and as a network overall, having an asset like Juggernaut in our portfolio will definitely be a big value add.
Okay, so you basically are doing work for local OTTs rather than the big ones, Amazon and Netflix. If you can share with that, is it primarily with Hotstar, with All Balaji, Boot? Is it with those players, or is it with the internationals also?
So I'm not going to disclose my specific where I have specific contracts, because I don't think that would be a breach of our confidentiality with them. But what I can say is, though, that we have at least one or two shows with every single Indian platform. So
okay, but what about the internationals?
All of them, basically
the
all
international
of them.
ones, the Amazons and the Amazon Primes and the Netflixes.
So yeah, so I mean, obviously we are in conversation.
Okay.
So and because let's not forget, while Samar has a very big pedigree of content creation, Juggernaut as a company is new, right? So we are building some traction, delivering some. Our aim is to deliver 3-4 big hits this year, and then start working with Netflix and Amazon at some point as well. Why are we restricting it to Netflix and Amazon? It can be Apple, it can be Hulu.
HBO Max.
Probably may not be, yeah. So HBO Max, yes, sure. So
yeah. So what genre is Juggernaut positioned in? Is it going to be in the thriller genre? What is its specialization? We tend to do this. We tend to put, production houses in buckets. That's a non-fiction company.
Yeah. It's a good question. It's a very, very good question. So we obviously, the success of Codem has, and Summer himself as a content creator is very good at certain type of shows. And obviously as a production house, we don't want to restrict ourselves to that. But what people will now find out that people like Summer and our entire creative team with him and the writers, content creation is not it's a collective effort, right? And success in content creation comes from bringing the right people together for the right type of project, right? And I think, so for us, we are not focused on just doing thriller shows or fiction or non-fiction. The idea for us is to create good content, create content that is in demand by those platforms at that time. So you have to understand, OTT is such a fast feedback medium. It's not like television, right? I mean, you come to know within on the same day of launching a show whether it's working or not, and you have so much data, right? That platforms specifically know, right, what they want and what kind of content is working at that time, depending on the mood of the country and various other factors, and in what regions, right? So regional content again is a very big part of the way OTT content is going to get created. So for us, rather than focusing on whether we want to be in thriller or non-fiction, etc., we want to focus on knowing what's working with the audiences, learning from our experiences in creating good content, working closely with the platforms, leveraging our relationships to preempt what kind of concepts and stories are going to be going to work, say maybe a few months down the line, and then prepare our content bank to cater to those needs. I think that's at least at my broad level, strategy level, that's the way we are looking at it. Obviously, we will have to see as and when we go along if there are any changes to that. But I mean, you will see now that we are creating shows across genres. It's not going to be only restricted to one genre.
Yeah. So you're very tall. You're what 6'8"?
6'7".
6'7".
2 meters.
You're the tallest man in the television industry, but yet people are just about starting to notice you. How much more are you going to achieve? What else do you have to roll out? There's games you're looking at. So, throw some light on, building a multimedia organization and also being seen as a media entrepreneur who came in from nowhere.
See, the vision, for us as a network is obviously the broadcast business, is by far the biggest business in media, right? So it's a, whatever, 80,000 crore industry, right? And so as a media network, honestly, and I say this to the team all the time, we don't really have, if you want to be a successful media network, broadcast you have to have a piece of the broadcast business. So I think that's going to definitely be our focus in terms of, how we put, the kind of resources we allocate within the network. And, with already, with having 3 channels on air and another 2 in the pipeline, we have an opportunity now to offer all our channels as a bouquet, to consumers. And you'll be seeing some of that over the next few weeks. We are launching 5 channels at the price of 2 rupees, for each subscriber, which is a price that is far lower than any other player in the market right now. And all our 5 channels have different genres. So we have obviously Epic Infotainment, we have Showbox, which is India's number 3 music channel. Then we have Filamchi, which is a Bhojpuri movie channel. We're also launching a GEC and a kids TV channel as well. So our bouquet will have all the 5 big genres together at a price that's very competitive and sort of very value additive to the consumers. So our aim for the broadcast business is now to focus on that strategy and find a way to create good content, curate good content, and build a positioning for our channels, and build our subscription sort of business, in that direction. And at the same time, hopefully with some good viewership, we'll be able to monetize with ads simultaneously as well. So broadly, that's our strategy for our broadcast business. I think I've already shared what our discussion. Our strategy is for OTT and for the production house.
And then you have games finally, and
games. So games is a very small. It's a business that we incubated, just out of So Actually, Platinista as a business, came about as more of an organic discussion, because a lot of people look at gaming as a different business, right? But we look at gaming as also content creation, right? And the vision and the mission that we have for Intel Media Network is that at our heart is going to be content creation, right? We want to be a content engine. The platforms are just an enabler for monetization, but at our heart, our objective is to create content. So even if you look at the infrastructure that we have at our facilities, they are geared up to create content at volume, at large scale. So Platinista was an idea that, where we believe that if you create good games and good technology for interactivity and for, to be able to get more engagement and stickiness from your viewers, that for us falls within the ambit of content creation, right? So that's the logic behind how we sort of started the gaming business. We are still very early. It's only been about 6-7 months. We're still trying to find our feet and figure out which way we want to go with our gaming business. But it's a business that we're excited about, and we built some very exciting technology around interactivity, which we are now licensing to other platforms, etc. So yeah, I mean, as a business, I mean, as an industry, gaming is, it's one of the fastest growing industries, within
because during this period of the lockdown, I mean, games, esports have really grown rapidly. How many games do you have ready on and to roll out?
So we have a portfolio of around 12 games already,
okay.
And we have a few more in the pipeline. And we've also licensed our technologies to a couple of big platforms who are using it for playing Housey. So we have our own technology for Housey, for Bid to Win, for quizzing, etc. And a large part of this technology is also going to be used in our own OTT platform, right? So again, as a network, the synergies, right, that we have across our different businesses is something that really drives a lot of value for us.
Fantastic. So tell us something about your views on pay TV in India. You said you're bullish about your broadcast side, but somehow or the other, if you listen to the industry, the entire ecosystem needs fixing for almost every player in the value chain. You listen to the DPOs; they are complaining about having a problem in collections. The broadcasters having a problem in collections. In the side of the cable operators and the MSOs, there are things to be fixed over there. And despite all the efforts being put in, somehow the other, the revenues are going up from subscription side, but it's not going up rapidly now. So are you bullish about pay TV? You said you're launching more channels when streaming is really becoming so, the uptake is happening to a large extent. And what needs fixing in pay TV? And then we'll get on to free TV.
So I think first, let me quickly just talk about OTT versus television, right? So there's the conversation of cord cutting happening globally, and a lot of people I hear in India saying that TV is going to die, etc. So interestingly, out of what as per the last census, we have I think about 300 odd million homes in India, right? Households. 100 million of them still don't own a television. In fact, large part of those 100 million homes just got electricity in the last couple of years. So I think, the first source of entertainment for most of these families is television. So fundamentally, as an organization, we believe that television is here to stay in the long term. That the OTT versus television, comparison is relevant from a type of viewing experience. So OTT is a personal device; it's viewed for personal viewing. The type of content you see is very sort of one-on-one, and television is more family viewing, so I think they both will complement each other for the foreseeable future. So that's one part. In terms of pay, the biggest networks in India, right? They drive 30 in some cases 40%, 50% of the revenues come from subscription. As a broadcast network, if you rely completely on advertisements, right, the chances of you being able to invest in content, reduces drastically. And therefore, your ability to compete with the big networks also reduces drastically. So as a network, we made a conscious decision that we have to be a network that is going to drive subscription revenues in the long term. It may take us longer compared to some of the other players, but the long-term goal is very clear that unless there is subscription revenue for the network, we are not going to be able to create good IP and provide good content. And that's what ties into the conversation about the NTO one and the debate between broadcasters and DPOs. Because for us as a broadcast business, if we don't get households to contribute that subscription to our revenue, we're not going to be able to invest in good content. We're not going to be able to innovate and provide good content. So I think we may have different views on what is the impact of this of NTO 1, and now there's obviously an amendment and an NTO 2 which is now postponed, but will probably come in at some point. I think TRAI and the ministry, I think they're trying to be as fair as they can, with a focus on the consumer, and trying to balance the viability of the broadcast business with the expectations and the value the value you're providing to Indian consumers. So I don't want to get into that debate because that's a conversation that will take a long time. But as a network, we are very clear that we want to be driving subscription going forward, and obviously, large part of our revenue has to also come from ad sales, which is something that we are going to also continue to drive.
So you mentioned you don't want to get into that conversation, but somebody's got to get into it because it needs fixing. And your entire business rollout, your plans to get a bouquet of 5 channels, giving them at 2 rupees, collections, relationships, that needs fixing.
It's not that bad, frankly. I honestly, I think I should let some of the guys who run the larger networks speak on this topic. But for us, the NTO 1 has been good for us, right? So okay. And we believe that a product like Epic is getting fair value now after NTO 1 than it did before NTO 1, and I think our network will get fair value, as well going forward. But obviously, there are, like I said, contradicting opinions that people have on the subject. But we think it's a positive.
I understand, but this world is changing so rapidly. Aren't you ever daunted by the fact that a large group like ZTV, which was really doing very well, is today is just fighting its way back to get to where it was at one stage? Uday Shankar has just announced that he's lost about 80% of his revenues during this period of the lockdown. How has this entire, one is the competitive nature of the business, the lack of proper business structures which are holding good with the changing environment. How is that, doesn't that daunt you? And aren't you cautious is what I'm saying? You seem bullish.
No, I think to say that Z is a business that is not doing well is inaccurate.
No, I'm not saying it's doing well. It's having to fight its way back.
No,
currently almost, yeah.
You mean because of COVID or just generally?
In terms of the business, it's a very robust business, but COVID has impacted it further.
Okay,
there was anyway a deceleration in the economy before COVID. The economy was, and the advertising budgets were drying up. One, and secondly, the fact that OTT, there's so much of a focus on OTT. You said television is going to continue, but despite that, almost every other broadcaster is kind of ring fencing itself with OTTs, so that because they don't know which way it's going to swing, and they want to have a piece of both traditional television as well as OTT. So with all this going around, don't you feel that you being a smaller player, you could get kind of left behind?
No, obviously we don't think that, right? And otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, right? So we have a lot of conviction, and like I said, this is the content business, right? Eventually, and obviously there are certain economies of scale that the big networks enjoy, where they have an added advantage. Barriers to entry in the broadcast business are extremely high, But as an organization, we believe that we have the right, backing, the right capital, the right understanding, the team that we've built over the last 6 to 8 months to execute our vision, is some of the most talented people in the industry, etc. So I don't see why we won't be able to get some market share. Now, how much of that market share we will get, and what kind of viability and monetization we will do, is obviously something that we will have to see, and depending on the efforts that we put and how the market reacts to our strategy. But I don't see any reason why. I don't consider ourselves to be at an unfair sort of disadvantage, if I can say that, right? I think that we are, while obviously they have economies of scale, larger capital, etc. I think that we also, it's a pretty reasonably level playing field. If you're able to create good content, offer the right product, show value to advertisers, show value to DPOs and cable operators about what we're doing, there is no reason why they will not embrace us, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody has the same mission, which is to provide good content to the viewer, right? So you just have to find the commonality between your partners and your trade partners. So I think that's the reason why I'm bullish.
Fantastic. Good to hear that. Now, coming down to the COVID scenario, you know, how, you've also been probably shut down or working from home ever since the lockdown has happened. Uh, you know, how's the mood within the company? You were actually I think you were on the fastest train to get to somewhere, and suddenly there's been brakes put on you.
So, advertising revenue, as you know, in overall, the overall ad pie is down by 50%. Unfortunately, our in our Showbox, which is our music channel, the music genre is ad business is down by 80%. So we obviously it's been tough, and we feel that it's time now to sort of watch from the sidelines, take a step back and step aside and see how this plays out, because I think nobody in the right mind can predict where this is going to go. But fundamentally, I'm of the opinion that this is definitely going to be a prolonged crisis. I think the impact on consumer sentiment is going to be pretty severe, and it's going to take a long time for consumer sentiment to recover. So at the end of the day, everything is linked to that, because consumer sentiment impacts purchasing. Discretionary income is what impacts purchasing. That impacts brands' ability to grow their sales and then to start advertising, right? So usually a business, the first thing that they do to save money is stop advertising, and the last thing that they do when they have free cash flow is advertise. So I think from an advertisement point of view, I think it's taken a very big hit. The entire industry has taken a big hit. Obviously, there is now some optimism. With the last week, I'm hearing some industry players saying that they foresee a big comeback in June. But we'll have to see how much of that comeback happens and in which genre. Because as you know that because news viewership and movie viewership grew so fast in the last few months, a lot of the money that was even there in other genres moved to that genre. So I think we'll have to see how it plays out over the next few months. Interestingly, though, the larger networks are slightly cushioned because they have, while subscription is difficult for cable operators to collect subscription right now because of COVID and because of the lockdown, their households are eventually going to pay, right? So while cash flow and liquidity may be a strain for the larger networks, eventually that money will come in. So it's not a complete write-off for them. And I think that's where they are slightly better off than some of the smaller networks who don't have any subscription revenue. And in fact, our most smaller channels and networks are paying carriage. So I think that's the impact, on the industry as far as revenues are concerned, in my opinion.
And how has that impacted your company? Have you had to go in for right sizing, and have you had to go in for? I mean, everyone's doing it. We've had to actually rationalize our spends and right size our companies. So have you had to go in for that? The industry knows that, there is some, you're basically looking at your businesses with a microscope and trying to figure out how to stretch yourself for the long term and not get strained on your capital.
Yeah, I think to ignore the impact of this crisis and to sort of assume that this is a short-term crisis and we can tide over it by continuing the course that you're on, I think would be naive. And we as an organization, we've obviously had to take some tough decisions, whether it comes to scaling down our businesses or undoing or redoing some of our deals, etc., including cutting our employee costs, etc. So that's, as an organization, I think we're in the same boat as everybody else, and we've tried to balance what is fair and what is good for the long-term survival of the business and success of the business versus being fair to employees and to generally the morale at our organization. So we've tried to find that balance and make sure that the objective of the organization and the future of the organization is protected. And most of our employees, in fact, all our employees have been very cooperative and very supportive, and not just in my media business, just across the board. And I think this shows that when you have employees that understand, what's happening right now, it shows that you've been able to build, a participative culture, right, of employees, and like I mentioned when we started this webinar, that having a cohesive organization that has one goal and rallying your people to that mission and making sure that they are in tune with the path that you're taking is key to scaling any business, right? And I spend a lot of time in making sure that our senior leadership and even generally the teams in our businesses are extremely focused on what our mission is, and is aware of why some decisions are being taken. So I go out of my way to explain pretty much every decision of mine so that people understand what the vision is, and then they buy into it, right? And then you suddenly see that everybody else in the organization is suddenly rallying behind you, even at the toughest of times. So yeah, it's been tough, but we also, like I said, I told you before the webinar started when we were talking one-on-one, that I think that this is the ability to see the silver lining in the cloud. I think looking for an opportunity in every crisis is the only good thing about life, right? And I think that for all my businesses, I'm trying to find how this crisis can be converted into a long-term opportunity, and how we can use our learnings and use this time to sort of re-engineer our business strategies, and even to some degree our culture and how we work and things like that.
So what have you come up with? What have you learned? What do you need to do?
Specifically on the business strategy side?
On the business strategy, I mean, how are you going to recalibrate the company in terms of, I know you said you've done right sizing, you've cut costs, which almost everyone is resorting to, and you've been fair to people. But in terms of recalibration, is there any recalibration happening? I believe you've gone off the free-to-air platform of DD Free Dish. Are you still on DD Free Dish?
No, we are still on DD Free Dish.
Okay.
And we are still evaluating what our plan for that is going to be going forward. But I can say though that considering the kind of ad business that the kind of impact of COVID on ad business, it's going to be extremely difficult to continue to be on DD Free Dish going forward. But it's a decision that we'll be making over the next few days.
Fantastic. So I've got a question here from Venkat Garapati. Do you think the time is right and Indian audience is mature to have an esports streaming platform? I think there are platforms in India already there. So do you think it's right? The time is right?
Yeah, I think for any kind of new genre of content, I mean, again, esports is content, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think Anil, I think it's an important thing that I want to share here, right? So typically people talk about users, right, and talk about viewers. So in our organization, when we have debates, right, and we talk about what should be our strategy and where the viewers are more attracted to and what's driving viewership, I always sort of come in with a different point of view and say that, listen, we need to focus on where the money is, right? So I think while when you look at the large number of users and whether it's OTT or whether it's esports or the newer sort of content offerings, right? They may be large in user base, right? But where's the monetization, right? Where's the money? So unless you have deep pockets and you have, like I said, you're already in the space and you're it's one of your offerings and you have the capital and the free cash flow to fund it for 5-10 years, it's not really. So in the same way, while esports may be popular and while people in India are watching it, there's not much money in the industry, unfortunately. There are no brands, there's no affinity, it's not a mass product yet. So I think there's definitely potential in esports, and it's something that we're looking at on the gaming side at some point, but I am not so sure how fast it will be able to pick up and become mainstream anytime in the near future. Okay,
there's some more questions. Do you think it's the right time to introduce TVOD models, that's transaction video on demand? Would DocuPay get into that anytime soon? Then there's another question again, looking at collaborations between OTT platforms and distributors, Binge, Jio, Airtel Extreme, so on. Do you think a super aggregator is a way forward? So, I mean, you're generating a lot of interest. There's one more. Do you think there's still more space for FTA channels? Can we expect more FTA channels coming from your stable in the near future? I think you've answered that, but who knows? You may have a different point of view for lower cost products which you can launch, which don't require so much of hard work to get the advertiser to spend money on.
DD Free Dish is expensive.
Yeah, I'm talking about going from TVOD. All the questions that are there.
Okay. So TVOD. So TVOD is actually a very successful model globally. In India, TVOD has not really taken off because it's expensive, right? So people don't want to pay even 20 rupees on Apple TV or wherever, right, to watch a movie, because you get, for 30 rupees you get a subscription of, I don't want to name the platform, but whatever, any of the platforms, and that has like 20,000 hours of content. I mean, so it's a bit skewed. So that's the problem. So, and unless you want to give a TVOD product for 10 paise, which is a bit silly, I don't know how TVOD is going to work. But in premium content, I think TVOD is something that again, so to put things in context, like for our platforms, like I mentioned, right, for a niche platform like a Docubay, and it's a good question, because for a niche platform like from Docubay, TVOD makes sense, because some of our premium offerings, because our customers are slightly, they're affordable, they can afford to pay a little more. It definitely makes sense to have some sort of TVOD offering in Docubay, and even to some degree, even Epicon for that matter.
Fantastic. So now looking, and what about the Cisco
aggregator?
Super aggregator. I think Jio is doing some of that, right? Hotstar is doing some of that.
Everybody is. So I mean,
but do we have a super aggregator who's aggregating everybody? No,
but Anil, the thing is, aggregating is not hard.
Yeah.
Anybody can aggregate. The problem is owning the consumer, right? Getting your consumer to buy your bundle, right?
Sure.
There's a reason why the telcos and the platforms are being looked at aggregators. Why? Because they own the consumer, right? They have
Sure.
access, the first point to consumer. So I think whether there's aggregation already happening. So I don't think being the aggregator model is already at play at large. So
Sure.
when Jio Fiber launches, as part of their plan, so if you're at a 499 subscription plan, or a 999 plan, or a 1999 plan, based on your tier of your planning, you will get in the lower plan 5 OTTs for free in that same subscription. So what is that? That's bundling, right? But because they're able to do that, because they own the end consumer, right? Same for Extreme, same for Tata Sky Binge, etc. So I think ownership of the consumer is where the game is, not really aggregating. I mean, that's the easy part.
Okay, great. Then do you think there's scope for FTA? And do we see you investing in FTA? You just said you're going to consider over the next few days, but do you see other opportunities in FTA that's free to air?
So I think it's important that I think a lot of the people at large probably don't, and a lot of people in the trade you don't know this, but there's a just because you don't have to be FTA to be on DD free dish, right? So that's an important distinction that people have to understand, that DD free dish is just their service is free, right? You don't have to be a free to air channel to be on DD free dish. The rules are very clear. So our strategy in terms of being FTA and pay, I think, will depend on the type of genre and the type of channel we launch. But for the time being, because of the 2 rupee bouquet that we've launched, all our 5 channels are pay. So, but that doesn't stop us from going on DD free dish in the future.
Okay, fantastic.
Or continue to be on DD free dish.
Yeah. So I've got a couple questions are coming in there, man. Sure, Aditya, what is one story or character that you want to tell through a show or a series? This is coming from Vishal Pahuja. What is one story or character that you want to tell through a show or series? I mean, do you get into that conversation, or you leave that to Samar and the writer's room and to the creative people who you've hired to look after that?
No, I mean, there are lots of ideas that we have. I mean, we are working
I'm talking about you specifically, not about it's addressed to you, Aditya.
Honestly, I don't know what to say to that, frankly. I don't want to just come up with a random answer. I haven't really thought about it.
So start thinking about it for the next conversation. This is Vishal is telling you to think about it.
Okay, sure.
Now, then Vivekanand is asking a question. What are your views on censorship, self-regulation norms on OTT platforms? Another hot potato.
Yeah, I think censorship on OTT is definitely a need of the hour. I think we are while we are very liberal and forward-looking society. I think there are certain do's and don'ts that we have, that the lines that cannot be crossed, at least not for now. And I think that self-censorship is something that will emerge, over time. And I think, and in all probability, the government will come up with some sort of rules about censorship, OTT censorship in India. I think personally, I feel that making sure that the age group or the viewability of the content, in terms of age brackets, should be clearly communicated, like it is done globally, and then the decision to watch that content should be left on the viewer. I think regulating what you make, somewhere fundamentally, I believe that trying to regulate what content is created kind of kills the entire concept of content creation and storytelling. So for me, I think the concept of having some sort of system where you very strictly communicate before you play or before the content plays as to what the age bracket for that content is, what it contains potentially, and then let the user decide whether they want to consume it. Ideally, that would be the best ecosystem.
Sure. I have a last question because we've got another webinar coming up after this one, but it's coming from Rajat Chandra. Will regional content make it to becoming the mainstream form of media consume? Your thoughts?
Sorry, what is that, Anil? Come again?
Regional content, will it become mainstream form of media consume because India is such a diverse country? Do you expect that, at times Sun TV has actually been the #1 channel on BARC ratings in the past. So do you see regional content becoming the mainstream form of media consumed?
No, I don't know if I understand the question, but it is regional content, does it have decent market share? Yes, it definitely does. But whether it can be mainstream, can it compete with for example, Hindi? I don't think that's feasible. But I think overall, I think the regional content, in terms of the positioning that it has and the potential that being in regional content has, is definitely something that we are also going to look at as a network going forward. So fundamentally, I think regional markets are going to be more profitable, and you will see a lot more action there.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Aditya. And thank you to the audiences. You've had a consistent audience running into hundreds and thousands almost. So on a live feed. Thank you to the viewers who've been watching this rather frank conversation between Aditya and me. It's been a pleasure having you, Aditya, and wish you lots of best, all the best, and lots of success in all that you're planning to do. And let's catch up again soon. Thank you and goodbye. Good evening to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.